Young John Gray and her parents, John and Elaine, are seen in a car in 1975. John changes the tune on the radio using her abilities, but she quickly gets overpowered by voices in her head and screams for them to stop talking. This results in a serious accident that kills Jean's parents when Elaine, the driver, passes out and collides with a truck. Jean, however, is unharmed after being pulled from the crash. Charles Xavier greets Jean at the hospital and makes an effort to console her. He informs her that she has a gift and that it is completely up to her what she does with it. In the hopes of providing her with protection and enabling her to make positive use of her abilities, he takes her to his school for gifted youngsters. The Space Shuttle Endeavour launches in 1992, but is quickly ensnared in what appears to be a solar flare. Charles is called by the president to fly out there and rescue the astronauts who have been stranded. Jean Grey, Phoenix; Aurora, Storm; Kurt, Nightcrawler; Peter, Quicksilver; Hank, Beast; Scott, Cyclops; and Raven, Mystique, lead the X-Men into orbit for the expedition. Kurt and Peter teleport there when they come upon the shuttle, and they use Peter's speed to bring everyone back together. But according to one astronaut, their commander is still stranded on the shuttle. To get him out, Kurt and Jane teleport. While Kurt recovers the commander, she attempts to use her powers to block the approaching flare. But the flare consumes the shuttle while Jean is still inside. Jen survives despite absorbing the flare's energy. Kurt comes back to get her back inside, and the X-Men are greeted as heroes when they get home. Charles dismisses the other pupils from their classes after he returns to the institution. Raven, however, tells Charles that he appears indifferent to the fact that his students are being put in danger by these missions, and that he might be more worried about the renewed admiration the X-Men have received since defeating Apocalypse. In another scene, 3 ships arrive close to a lake mansion hosting a dinner party. When her dog begins to bark, Margaret, a woman, walks outside to investigate. Before their leader, Vuk, assumes Margaret's body, she discovers 3 Dabari race aliens approaching her and murdering her and her dog. She kills everyone at the dinner party when she returns. Vuk later encounters more Dabari who are dressed as people. They are aware that John is carrying the energy of the solar flare since they have been tracking its trajectory. Jean's energy levels are off the charts, according to Hank's reading. The other pupils believe she's awesome and have begun referring to her as Phoenix since she feels stronger. Raven discusses with Hank the possibility of quitting the academy and living together. The campfire the kids built then begins to trigger Jean, who loses control of her abilities and sends a ripple effect that knocks everyone back. Charles joins Hank and Raven as they enter Cerebro to examine Jean's mental state. There, Hank and Raven discover that Charles tried to shield Jean from the hurt and any guilt she could have felt by erasing her memory of the vehicle accident. Jean wakes up and yanks Charles from her mind when she hears a voice she doesn't recognize. She tells Scott that she is aware her father is still alive when he stops by her room to see how she is doing. When Jean returns to her former neighborhood, she discovers that John is still alive and living alone in their former house. He extends an invitation for her to enter, but she notices that he has no photos of Jean, just of himself and Elaine. She searches John's mind for a recollection in which he voluntarily surrendered Jean to Charles, accusing her of being responsible for Elaine's passing and claiming that Jean and his entire world perished on that day. The X-Men show up to rescue Jean and assist her after she loses her temper. When she confronts them outside, Hank tries to shoot Jean with a gun that will render her unconscious. When the police show up, John uses her abilities to destroy them. She ends up seriously injuring Peter because she is too quick for both Kurt and Peter to catch her. Raven tries to comfort Jean by approaching her, but as soon as he touches her, Jean blasts back, sending Raven flying and impaling her into the splintered wood. While Hank tries to assist Raven, it is too late, and Jean withdraws. Raven is buried and mourned by the X-Men. Hank accuses Charles of causing Jean's transformation into the person she is and of being responsible for Raven's fate. Later, when Charles tries to seek for assistance, the president's staff even turns him away. Vuk and Jones, her associate, reach the neighborhood's ruins. After saying a few words, Vuk enters John's house and tightens his chest, killing him. Jean discovers a mutant shelter run by Eric, Magneto, on the island of Genosha. She wants protection, but when Eric notices Raven's blood on Jean's clothing, he becomes suspicious and she refuses to identify the owner. A military crew arrives on the island a short while later. Eric and the captain discuss giving up John. Eric deters her attempt to kill the soldiers by drawing their helicopter blades in their direction long enough for them to escape unscathed. John is told to leave by Eric. When Vuk enters a bar, he discovers John dressed as an elderly man's projection. Vuk brings her to her hiding with the other Dabari after she persuades Jean to accompany her. They were chasing the power source that destroyed their home planet when they saw Jean absorb it, and Vuk shows Jean a projection of the events that led to her powers. Vuk persuades Jean that because the other X-Men are powerless over her, they will attempt to destroy her. To get Eric's assistance, Hank takes a plane to Genosha. Eric is persuaded to find John and murder her when he informs him that Jean killed Raven. Eric receives assistance from Eriki, a psychic mutant who locates John in New York City, and Celine, another telepathic mutant. When Scott, Storm, and Kurt find out that Eric and Hank are pursuing Jean, they go up to Charles. They defy his orders, and Charles is forced to accompany them even though he doesn't want them pursuing her. Eric, Hank, Celine, and Eriki travel to New York in order to murder Jean. In front of terrified bystanders, the two mutant factions engage in combat in the streets. Kurt tries to teleport into the building where Jean is, but Celine pulls him away. Eric enters the building, but his attempt to murder Jean is unsuccessful. Jean almost kills him by pulling his helmet tight and then shattering it into sharp fragments that stab him and render him unconscious. Charles successfully repels Celine and Eriki to gain entry to the building with Storm's assistance. Jean coerces Charles into going upstairs to face her, but he apologizes for playing with her thoughts and allows her to go into his head to recall the moment John handed her over to Charles. Because of his unwavering faith in John, her positive traits have returned. As Jean begins to give up her abilities to Vuk, she declares her goal to wipe off humans and conquer their world. However, things are cut short when the mutant control unit shows there to sedate and apprehend every mutant. The mutants are transported by train to a confinement facility. The train is subsequently attacked by the Dabari as they attempt to retrieve Jean. After the mutants are set free, the Dabari begin to murder the troops. Celine and Eriki are killed in the process as they battle the aliens one by one. None of the other mutants can stop Vuk, who has gained strength from pursuing Jean. Charles approaches Jean and helps her awaken. She wrecks the train while defending the mutants. When Vuk tries to take away Jean's remaining abilities, Jean begins to voluntarily give them up since she can no longer handle it. Scott begins to crumble under the energy of this, and Vuk tells Jean that she cannot kill her without hurting the others. After pulling Vuk above Earth and destroying her there, Jean disappears in a blast that leaves a blazing phoenix in the sky. The Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters is the new name given to the academy later on. Peter has healed from his wounds, Storm starts teaching, and Hank takes over as dean. After retiring, Charles travels to Paris where Eric finds him. Charles initially objects to Eric's offer to play chess with him, but changes his mind as Eric explains that he wants to do for him what Charles did for him many years ago: save his life and provide a home. A flaming phoenix soaring across the sky is the last thing we see as they begin to play.